Tyler, it is awesome to see you. How are you doing this morning?
Doing fantastic.
Awesome.
Good crisp morning here in North Carolina.
There you go. We met at Dale Dupree, the Sales Rebellion Totality Conference, and you were out there. Were you leading the AV team or the AV capture team? What was your role at the event?
I was brought in by Dale to the AV team and my team were two separate teams. I wasn't doing any of the event audio, video stuff. I was filming a whole documentary for the event, basically a 3-parter alongside filming the speaker segments and full interviews and stuff like that.
So you were separate from audio, video that was going on at the event. You were documenting the event. Why would an event organizer have separate teams doing that kind of work?
Well, the AV team was basically just there for the actual in-event sound. So like the mic, doing the actual amplification for the room. And there wasn't really another video person. There was another person taking photos, but it was basically like Dale said, everyone film everything with your phone, flood the internet. And then also I was there to kind of capture the story of the event, how it all went down.
So how do you think a story?
I come from film. I don't come from business and B2B. Simple 3-act structure, beginning, middle, end, hero's journey. Those are all sort of mental models that I think of. But it's interesting because I realized that marketing and film and stuff like that, storytelling, it's the same thing. Act 1, the introduction, right? You got to hook people in. You got to introduce people to your story. Act 2, problem identification, right? That sounds a lot like marketing. Act 3, the dark night of the soul, the hero finds a solution, right? You introduce a solution. Act 4, conclusion, hero wins. Your problem solved because you bought the solution. It's the same thing. It's that inbuilt way in which us as humans just view the world is through stories. And basically, if you're able to just tap into that, anything you do will resonate.
So it seems simple, yet I continue to struggle with it from the standpoint of marketing our business and getting the information out. We've talked a bit about content creation. Why do folks, and we'll get into a number of the questions that I've got, struggle with story as it relates to the work that we do? Or why do folks struggle with story in general?
Well, I would say in relation to if you struggle with story in general, you probably just don't read enough or watch enough things and are being introspective with what you're watching. Like the story is something that we all intuitively know. Just being able to verbalize that and construct one yourself, even a poorly made one, that just takes some reps and some introspection, some time. In regards to marketing though, just from somebody who's not I'm not from B2B native. I'm just a guy that kind of walked in here, People just overcomplicate this stuff. They're not looking at it in terms of people and in terms of emotions. They're looking at it in terms of tasks to do, in terms of KPIs, in terms of oh, will this get approved? They're just thinking not like people. And they're so far removed, honestly, from the idea that the whole point of this stuff is to get somebody to do something or change a belief. That's all it is. You're just getting somebody to click a button or buy something, or you're getting something to think differently about things. And anything extra on top of that just will confuse from that core message, in my opinion.
So, and when you get into this kind of this storytelling aspect of it, how does the storytelling approach, and maybe it doesn't, but how does the storytelling approach change depending on medium that it's being communicated? So whether it's audio, whether it's written or video, how does story change, or how does the approach to story change in those 3 mediums?
Well, Marshall McLuhan talks about hot and cold mediums, where hot mediums are ones that do the work, they do the processing and the work for you. So that would be something like a film or a video, right? Where it's like you have a red bus driving across the screen, right? You're not having to read a red bus drove across the road and then imagine what that looks like. It is just showing you exactly. You're not having to process and make that yourself. Whereas reading is a cold medium. it doesn't exactly, when you read a book, when you read lines of text, you have to do the work to process and interpret that yourself. And so the good part with reading is that it is stimulating. It forces you to sort of think about things in your own different perspective. But the problem with reading when it comes to marketing, the problem with it in terms of marketing is that Kevin Dorsey actually talked about this at Totality, is like the tone. The tone can get misconstrued if you're reading something. The energy might not be able to be transferred properly. You just straight up might not be that good of a writer. Most of us aren't good writers. But if you're speaking, you're able to add some flair. You're able to add your personality. You're able to stray away from grammar and certain things that might cause you to overthink or write in a certain way that is not you. There's just an element to video that allows, it's just a recorded conversation. It's you at scale. And so it's kind of you're able to kind of just be yourself and get content out there without needing to force it into words. And now a lot of people are very good writers. And if you are a good writer, you will make better videos just objectively, because writing does strengthen your thinking. I try to write every single day. Everybody who wants to make better videos should be writing, whether that's writing about their business, whether that's just writing a journal, whether that's making scripts for their videos, whatever it is, writing needs to be a habit because it does work off each other. And I don't think it should be one or the other. And as you see with every video these days, like freaking auto captions are everywhere. The freaking people want to read the videos too. Like they don't want to just see stuff. They want to actually see some text pop up, and especially on social media. So, articulation and mastery of language is just very, very important if you want to do well long term.
What's your writing practice? And like, how do you write?
I don't really have a set practice. I just kind of like write what I feel like. Some days I don't write. Some days I want to write an email. Some days I want to write just something personal. Some days I see something in the world, whether it's political, historical, philosophical. I just want to write about that a little bit. And I'm always writing when it comes to like LinkedIn posts and whatever. Like I'm always trying to get a little bit better at hooks and copy and things like that every single day. So I'm holistic with it, and I'm not very regimented in terms of like, I got to write 5 pages a day and do this thing and this task and self-improvement, atomic habits and blah, blah. Like I don't approach life like that. And so, maybe that's wrong of me, but that's just, I find time to do it every day. That's basically it. The form changes, but the habit is consistent.
Yeah. So really cool. And it's good to hear that. I struggle with the whole writing everyday thing. Like I'll do more writing on a whiteboard than I will on a keyboard as an example. It's just a good way for me to kind of capture ideas and capture what I'm thinking about, capture notes when I'm having a conversation with folks. And I avoid it because it's not something that gives me energy. And I'm a big fan of doing things that give me energy and have high impact. This is one of those practices that doesn't give me a lot of energy, and I'm trying to figure out different ways to go about doing it. So one of the things that I've done is record video and then take transcripts and look at those transcripts to say, okay, what else can I do with those as a way to improve writing? You had mentioned video scripts. Mm-hmm. When you're writing out a video script, what goes into that? Like, how do you start? What's the difference between writing for a video script versus writing for a blog post? Can you go deep on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've just been doing this for so long. It's very just intuitive for me.
Cool.
To me, especially short videos. I don't really like long form video scripts. I haven't had the need to. And if I do some sort of long form VSL, it won't be a traditional VSL. It'll be something a bit more schizo. But when it comes to short videos, basically how I approach it is just do a hook, make the hook as best as you can. So that's like usually 1 or 2 lines, something that introduces the viewer to the whole video. If you don't have a good hook, nobody's going to watch your video. Simple as that. Or if you're rambly to start, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get those views. And then you kind of just figure out, okay, what are the 2 or 3 points that people need to know about what I'm talking about? And how I always approach it is you have the thing. So like, say you're talking about how to be more productive or something. And your first point is to be more productive, you need to wake up at 6 a.m. or something like that. What a lot of people fail at is they kind of just skip to the next point. They're like, okay, 6 a.m. But they don't go, so what? Like, you have to ask yourself, so what, to every single line. 'Cause that's what the viewers can be asking. They're going to be asking, so what? And so when I'm writing these scripts, I'll like put my 3 points down and then I'll think, so what, to each of these. Like, okay, so you're waking up at 6 a.m. You're just going to go, so what? And you go, well, if you wake up at 6 a.m., you have more energy for the day and you have an extra like 3 hours on the rest of the world to get things done. Okay, that answers that question. And then you go to the next one, you give a new point, you give another what, right? Oh, it's meditate 20 minutes a day. Okay, so what? If you meditate 20 minutes a day, you clear your mind. You always want to have a what and a why paired with each other. And then you just do that enough until you feel like you've accomplished the goal of describing what the topic is. And then you just, the closing of a video, you can just be kind of slick with it and kind of just end the video. What I'm going to start experimenting next week is with much harder call to actions. I've been kind of slacking on my CTAs, especially with my interview style content. So I'm just going to have some very hard call to actions to book a call or whatever like that at the end. So you can kind of go in multiple directions with that. Some people plug their newsletter. Some people plug a course that they have. Some people just say reach out. Some people say follow. You can always incentivize the viewer to do something from the end of the video, at least with short content.
Yeah. So on the hook side of things, what makes a good hook?
A good hook is descriptive. So it clearly explains what the video is about and what the problem it's going to solve. Scroll stopping, like you want a specific hook. Be specific. You want to frame things in the most interesting way as possible. That's kind of how I approach it. And I spend like most of my scripting is on the hooks. And the reason for that is because if you can nail the hook and you can get that down, the body matters if you do the what and the why combo. The hook is about a promise. It's a promise to the viewer that what they're about to spend 45 seconds to a minute of their life on will actually teach them something in that vertical. So, for example, you're saying, a very easy thing to fall back on is a listicle, right? 3 reasons you're not closing deals on LinkedIn. Anybody who's having a problem on LinkedIn closing deals is going to click that video and watch it. Now, the point of the hook, again, the hook's a promise. So you go 3 reasons you're not closing deals on LinkedIn. And then you don't jump into the first one right away. You start blabbering about other crap, right? 3 reasons you're not closing deals on LinkedIn. Everybody just knows like LinkedIn is just super tough and like, it's really hard to get going and blah, and they're already like, all right, I don't care. Or they're just going to go read your post and not watch your video. But if you're like 3 reasons you're not getting deals on LinkedIn. Number 1, your profile sucks. Okay. And with every point in the video, especially with the what and why combo, you're trying to deliver a belief or a behavior transformation. That's the whole point of content. It's an energy transfer. It's a belief and behavior transformation vehicle. So 3 reasons you're not closing deals on LinkedIn. You're trying to transform their behavior and trying to transform their beliefs. So maybe they're approaching LinkedIn wrong. And this video will illuminate how you should approach LinkedIn differently. Maybe they have a bad habit with LinkedIn. Maybe they're not sending enough connection requests, or they're not, commenting on people. They're just straight up not going through the sale enough with people. And all these things are, if they're illuminated properly in a piece of content, it's going to change somebody's brain, actually change how somebody operates and looks at the world, and change, like fundamentally will change their reality. And so if you're able to just, and that's why boring content is very boring. We all know what boring, crappy content is. Most corporate content doesn't have a clear hook with like a strong message or a clear transformation involved. And then it's like weird corporate music. And then some guy comes on that you've never seen and like some super slick thing. And he's like, operationally, HR departments need to maximize their synergy with what, and like nobody cares. Everybody's out within the first 10 seconds. And that video was like $50,000 too. And so, like, at the end of the day, like, this is also why, this is kind of a slight tangent, but this is why it's very exciting for me, because anybody with a camera who's just like conscious with what they're doing and just actually wants to make good stuff can wildly outperform like a $200,000 a year. They can get more results from their phone videos or from their little like studio setup than like all the high production crap that, an IBM or a Boeing or a Salesforce or whatever the hell else companies are making expensive videos. You can outperform that if you just have the fundamentals down.
So do companies continue to invest time, energy, and resource in building out crap content?
I think it's just inertia. I think it's inertia, like, oh, we have to make better videos, but we could just keep doing the same stuff. Okay, let's just keep doing the same stuff. The second aspect is there's also a lack of accountability and clear metrics when it comes to things. Like, that's why a lot of the stuff on LinkedIn about ROI and stuff like that, it's all coming from startups. And these startups are like, if we put out stuff, we put like 3 months of effort into this stuff, we should start seeing some return. Whereas a huge company, an established company, it's like, we'll just put stuff out. They're not even really caring about if it's pulling back. I call it too big to fail. Like, companies can, like a Boeing or a IBM or a Salesforce, like they're going to make a bunch of money regardless of how their videos looks, just because they have so many contracts, they have so much name value or whatever. But they don't realize that by putting out all this bad stuff, A, they're limiting their further client acquisition, but B, also they're kind of tarnishing their brand in the long term for new people coming in. And that's why like certain brands have taken over TikTok really well, is that they're able to tap into a younger generation, because you want to be able to create buyers and create content for buyers that aren't ready to buy yet. IBM or a big company might put out a video. That video might not do anything, but just that brand name alone might be able to carry enough people to have some brand recognition. But if a bootstrap company or like even just a mid-sized company that doesn't have that name recognition tries to make videos in that same way of being bloated, boring, corporate, they're going to get crushed. It's going to be a complete waste of money, absolute complete waste of money. And that's why, like, I think big companies, big legacy companies are actually some of the worst examples to learn from in when it comes to your marketing, because they have, like, they can literally not market and still make like 10 times your ARR. And so they're coasting on like decades of brand deals and contracts and like results and just having Super Bowl. Like, they're embedded into American society at this point. They're not good to learn from. But like a bootstrap startup that needed to make profit this year, else it was going to fold, and is now like, 5x over the next 3 or 4 years. And they're doing all these innovative content strategies and their founders on LinkedIn and blah, blah. That's a good company to learn from, because they're kind of in reality, I guess. It's a model that anybody can take. And I mean, soon enough, like, bad video efforts have to be subsidized by the rest of the company or by the rest of the marketing team, or like it just wouldn't exist,
So let's talk a little bit about the content, or get into the content creation process, specifically around shorter form video. And you helping folks, like, let's say I see videos out there, I want to test creating some video. I'd like to do it. I'd like to get myself out. Where do I start?
I would just say pick up. If somebody's like, where do I start? I would just tell them, like, stop talking to me, go to your iPhone app, open the phone, talk about one problem your prospect has, give a solution, and just post that right away. There, you've started. Like, the where do I start thing, it almost pisses me off. It's just like, you just have to start. You just have to it's literally not about what you're doing. It's just about greasing the gear to make an action. And so any overthinking about starting just needs to get taken away by immediate, quick, disgusting action. Now, once you've done that, maybe once or twice, and you're like, okay, I did the action. It's not as scary as it was. I'm not overthinking it anymore. Okay, then it's like, how are we actually going to make videos? I mean, ideally, you have somewhat of a good setup. So whether that's a newer iPhone that you know how to light properly, whether that you have some sort of lighting that is good, whether that's some room lighting that you have, whether that's like I have it locked up behind me, like a actual lighting setup, and you have some sort of good audio setup. So you have some way to capture audio that is quiet. Yeah.
Let's talk about lighting. So what are a couple of common mistakes that people make when it comes to lighting? And how do you overcome those mistakes?
Yeah, I mean, too much light. Most people have too much light. They turn on all the lights in their room and they just wash themselves out and they just look like one color, basically. You don't want that. You do want shadows. You want some things that stands you out. You look cinematic. Your camera will have more depth to it. It's one of those things where people can see it. They will go, oh yeah, that's the way to go. It's like the difference between TV news and a film or a movie. The film or the movie is more evocative, more emotional, more cinematic. The TV news, the guy's all washed out. And it's like, yeah, it's very clear, but it's like, it's not great looking. The other option is like too little light. It's like, oh, if you're super dark and you're blurry, you're in a Zoom basement, it's all grainy, like that just looks creepy. Nobody's gonna care. And that's where like it's a balance between camera quality and lighting. You don't need as good of a camera as you think you need. You need better lighting than you think you need. And it's kind of that balance. So what I like to do is I like to have a very specific light. So I would either get a panel lights, 2 lights, or I'd get a Bowens mount light with a lantern diffuser. I know, sounds big words.
So what about was mount light with?
Yeah.
Yep.
With a lantern diffuser. It's basically a fancy professional video light. And it's basically just a very bright light. And what the lantern softbox does is, or any sort of softbox does, is it's called diffusion. What diffusion does on your face is that it goes from being like a Bowens mount F-250 high beam staring at your rear view mirror, blinding you driving down the freeway, to something that is very soft and natural looking on your face. You don't want super harsh, pitch black shadows like cutting off half your face. You want a natural look to the light. You want it to feel like it's almost like sunlight. You want it to feel very natural and calm. And you don't want the shadows to be too dark to where nobody can see. You just want there to be some level of like depth to the shot. And so that's what I like about a lantern softbox and just diffusion in general. Diffusion is a whole rabbit hole, but most people they don't even start there. They're just already, they're either way too washed out and they have all the lights on in their room, or they're not washed out enough and they're too dark. So just getting a good amount of light is the way to go.
All right. So we're going to have some wisdom light coaching. I have 2, I think you call them Bowen box lights style. One at about 45 degree angle this way. If we were going 90 this way, it'd be like 3. So 60 from the left. I can change my lighting. And this is not going to be for the audio side, but if you go back and watch the video version on YouTube, you'll be able to see it as it comes through. How would you adjust my lighting based on what you're seeing from the camera right now? The challenge I run into, I have a glass whiteboard behind me. So I have my camera set up in a way where I'm taking the reflection out of the whiteboard. You can just about see it just above my head, right about there's the edge where the reflection is. What would you adjust from a lighting standpoint if you were me?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think in terms of like a ranking hierarchy, for example, of things to do to make better videos, I think that lighting for you is close to the bottom. Most people, it's closer to the top because they have no idea what the heck they're doing. You have some light on you. It looks good. And that's what I'm all about with helping people with video. It doesn't matter if you have the absolute ideal lighting setup. If you have good lighting, but there's 3 other things that are more important to hit on first to make better videos, let's look at those first and let's work at those versus trying to touch the lighting or trying to touch the mic or, oh, I need a new camera or, oh, I need a new lens or, oh, do I need a teeth whitening job from the dentist? No. Let's look at the more specific things that will help you actually grow. But I think your lighting looks good, honestly. If I did like one thing, super niche, maybe make the one on stage left, your right, maybe a little bit darker, maybe, and just have some more shadow. But honestly, I wouldn't touch that. I think.
So big what I'm doing. I'm just playing with it. So I'm actually making the one to the left of me, left side of me, brighter. So if you're watching now, I feel like I'm burning. I'm not really burning, but there's a lot of light there, and you can sort of see how much the shadow changes from it.
Yeah, so you see on the right side of your face, you have more of a shadow now. And so, and I mean, that's the whole thing too. It's like, yes, lights are hot. So if you're going to be recording a long time, do you really want a super hot light that's blasted up just to get a great shadow? No. Is it going to affect the background? Are you close to the background? Is that going to add extra shadow from you to the background and make it really distracting?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of nuances with it, but I think your lighting is not, if you have problems with video, your lighting is not a problem that you have.
Is my problem. And really showing so people can start to see the difference in what ends up happening. So if I turn this light to my right, so the right up really hot or high, this is what ends up happening. I can pull that light down a bit. So, or I can take the light out and kill the light completely on that side. And it's sharing a bit of different perspective. You can start to do that to Better's point. That's why I do this. I love the point on, hey, that's really not worth focus, time, energy, and attention, because you just for a big challenge, which is, hey, it's not too dark and it's going to be grainy and you're already lost, or it's not too bright and completely washed. I don't have a single light. So let's get into another kind of thing that folks should look into comes to solving for challenges when it comes to creating video. So it's number one, push the button, click on the camera, take a video, record it, you take the action, release the gear, like Tyler said. And look at some of the things and say, yeah, what can I optimize? Where can I get into the right way? What's the next thing you would get into beyond doing the more starting, just getting the and then getting it like where else would
Yeah, I mean, once you have basic technicals down, and I'm stressing basic here.
cool. Yeah.
Once you have the basic technicals down, again, I would go back to what are your hooks and what are your core ideas,
Yep.
because that's what people are going to be caring about. Like the camera setup's cool. It's like camera setup's an enhancer. If you have really boring ideas and you have a great camera setup, will be even more corporate and boring and cringe and stereotypically, linked. However, if you have really good content ideas and really effective hooks and you have great production with it, that's going to be an enhancement because your videos are going to stand out and be like, not only do they have the information, the value that I'm looking for, they also look very cool and like they're pleasing to watch and they stand out. I can tell, oh, that's a Tiger video. That's a Mike video. So I would say just double and triple down on your hooks and your core idea. Just every hook lead to a clear promise and a clear, that's what value is. People, provide value. No, we'll define what that means. Well, it's when you it's like, value is a belief or behavior transformation with content. And you just need to keep coming back to that, and don't let like the technical stuff really bog you down, at least initially. Just get really good at speaking to the camera and being articulate with your ideas and framing your stuff in the most interesting way as possible. And also not being afraid to like piss people off or be controversial. Just really don't be afraid to do that stuff, because if you're not controversial, if you're not putting forward strong opinions, you're not going to stand out. And a lot of people I know, they can make good videos, they can talk well, but they're terrified of saying the wrong thing or terrified of possibly angering certain people and whatever. And you just got to kind of tank through it. Just be like, my opinion's true. I just need to say it. And, to hell with anybody who's going to like get mad at that. Also, it's LinkedIn. Like people getting mad at you on LinkedIn. Like you're not fighting a war. You're not like running for office, going to get sued. It is like some random dude putting a comment that's like, I disagree. It's like, okay, it's not that big of a deal, guys.
One thing that I'm interested in and I'm surprised by but also optimistic with is that storytelling talk about time. Kevin talked about the length of a video. You need to be 3 minutes, or a video needs to be 2 minutes and 2 seconds, or a video needs to be 30 seconds. Well,
Mhm.
how do you think about time in the
Mhm.
context of recording video?
I think thinking about length is kind of overrated. I just think it's like you should be focusing on the idea and you should be focusing on how can I deliver this with clarity in a succinct manner. And basically, if you're following the rule set, you're probably never going to make anything that's overly long. With short content, the general rule of thumb is you want to stay under 90 seconds. I tend to agree with. I rarely have a video that goes over a minute. Not because I'm trying to keep it under a minute, just because I kind of know I could talk about most things in under a minute and be pretty, not leave out too much, have just enough detail to where the topic gets across, but not enough to where it gets bogged down. And so I think, it's like just make a video. Just make the video. It's not school. There's nobody grading you for this. And so just post the videos and you'll figure out the length will just come naturally. The length will just come naturally for you.
What
I
about
will say there's some indications where you do want a long length for the video. Say, for example, if you're doing a big case study breakdown with a client or something like that, you're not going to try to force that in a minute. I mean, you can make a piece of short content on that, but if you're trying to make a video sales letter or a website asset or a training, yeah, make that thing like 18 minutes. People are going to watch that. Make it 40 minutes, like that's going to be good stuff. But yeah, for what most people are going for, which is like the short content, the thought leadership content, the vertical content, the stuff on LinkedIn that's like kind of a part of their daily posting regime. Like I would just speak good ideas and don't be overly long and you'll find your way.
this is one of the challenges I've run into with video
Mhm.
is I won't script. I'll start going into something and then I will allow scope creep to come into the video. And sometimes I'll be able to go in and edit that out. Like that didn't align with what the goal or the objective was. And this is why I really like the focus that you've had around knowing what your promise is. Like, what's the promise of the video, that specific video? What's the promise and purpose of that specific video? Leveraging the hook to hold you accountable to not getting too far away from the promise. And then getting back into this piece from being both clear and succinct for this amount of time to support that transformation so that people are drawn in, can go do something with it, can go take whatever they've learned and now are thinking about and now need to take action on. So very, very powerful. It's something I'm continuing to work on. For someone like me who doesn't like to script, how would you recommend that I get over that other than what I just admitted, which is, hey, I know that's thing. Scripting should keep me on point, help me not get too far off topic. How would you recommend think about scripting differently so that it doesn't get in the way of my preconceived notion or belief that if I script, I'm not going to sound natural.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple ways you can do this. You could just do bullet points, which I tend to do a lot. I script out my hook every time because I want to be sure that's perfect. And then I just have like my 3 bullets. I just do like a word or a phrase maybe. And I know what I'm talking about. And I know that if I try to go off a tangent, it'll get saved in editing by my team. So I just do that. And then I just have like a call to action maybe. But bullet points are the lifesaver for a lot of people because it gives you that structure that you need. But it also gives you kind of the confidence in yourself that, hey, man, like, you know what you're talking about. You don't need to sit here and spend time writing out every single word. Like, you just need a little prompting. Like, oh, yeah, this is a topic that we're going to hit on. This is point 1. This is point 2. This is point 3. Or this is the case study. Or this is this. These are the key results, right? You just kind of need a little reminder. The other way to do it is you can just film content interview style where you're basically talking to somebody and just having them ask you questions and you answer them. That's a fan favorite of mine. I do it all the time. And the third option is like, you can basically do interviews. You can kind of like hack interview style. And basically you can just after like you're talking to somebody else, but have on the screen, you can like write out a script or you can write out just the bullet points that you want. And you could just do it that way. Like if you just want to read them that way, but you don't want to really invest in a teleprompter or something like that. Looking at the camera is very overrated. Very overrated.
So let's talk about, so in your videos, it's really cool to see your framing on videos. And one of the things that's interesting about your video is you're very rarely are you looking right down the lens of the camera. And what that was one of the things I'm super uncomfortable with was what do I do with my eyes when I'm doing video? And it's taken me a while to get really comfortable looking down the camera at the camera lens. So what is eye contact? What's good framing when it comes to people? And how do you think about that?
Framing and eye contact are two separate things. Framing is
Okay.
just where you are going to be inside of the lens. You don't want to be too close. Like what a lot of people do is short content. Like they fill up the whole frame with their freaking face. Like I don't want to see your pores that close, dude. Like you don't need to be inches from your camera. It doesn't need to be that. I like framing more of the body. If you notice my videos, you can always see my body. You can see my hands. That's kind of the framing that I prefer. I don't like being super close on the face. And also too, if you are making videos with captions, you want to give space for those captions too. You don't want to have your face blocked off by captions and have text that's huge and popping up. Like that's why when I'm framing my videos, usually the bottom third of the video is like just my plain shirt. And so with that, that's where I can put my captions right there. And especially with the video feed UI, like if you pull up the video feed, you have the share buttons and you have the post description, all this stuff pops up. And you don't want your captions clashing with that, else it just makes visual clutter. People kind of get confused, brains freak out. They want to just leave the video. But yeah, eye contact like doesn't freaking matter, dude. Like it doesn't freaking matter. I'll say this: you either want to be looking at the camera or you want to be looking off the camera. You don't want to be like, the one thing you don't want to do is kind of looking off, but kind of like this, where you're like looking at yourself on the camera screen, but not at the lens. That looks weird. That looks weird. That looks like that's like I'm reading something. But looking totally off like this is like, oh, you're talking to somebody. Oh, you're having a conversation. Looking at the camera, you're talking to the viewer. Both those things work. Both of those things work. Now, what you don't want to do, but if you are doing a video like this, where you're talking off screen to somebody, or you're reading something off screen like this to somebody, what you don't want to do is break the immersion by having a call to action. That's just kind of like my gut feeling with this stuff, is you don't want to be like, yeah, Jim is having a great conversation with you. If you want to learn more about video content, sign up to my newsletter. But, if you are looking at the camera, it is more like, hey, I'm talking to you, blah, blah, blah. If I'm going to sell you at the end because I'm looking at you. But you don't want to break the immersion if you're looking off camera.
Is there anything that you wanted to get into that we didn't get into?
Do you have any questions about content yourself? We can help you with your setup or your own strategy.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit last time about, kind of how you're approaching video and all that stuff. So let's get into that, see if we can help you just live.
Okay. Cool. Big thing back here. Tyler, this has been awesome. And I fit on a number of things that I struggled with and continue to struggle when it comes to video. One of the things that I'm working on is getting more content out there that's compelling enough where people are either going to take a specific action and start applying it and then share more of it with other people. Start spreading that message and spreading the word there. I also have a resource that I can point people to when I see questions that come up in the marketplace. I can point people back into, hey, it's something like you're struggling with something like decision making. Well, here's a 2x2 that you can use to help improve. One of the challenges that are a thing that's core to my brand is the whiteboard. It's working through on the whiteboard, seeing things get built at the same time. When I'm doing that, I'll use a different set of microphones. I'll use some wireless mics, and the audio is really good on those microphones. And it allows me to turn away and not lose audio. One of the challenges I have, though, is when that video gets framed for a phone, as an example, I might get parts of the whiteboard cut off. And what I'm trying to figure out is there a way, does it make sense to either pull things further away so that more of the whiteboard is seen in that environment? Make sense to not do as much on the whiteboard? Or is there another way to go and try to solve for that specific problem, which is, hey, how do I convey something visually while also being able to deliver the audio component of it? Because the what that then turns in the what along with the why, and then the how is comes from here. So how would you think about, how would you coach me up on thinking about video in that context?
Well, the simplest thing you could do is just get a wider shot of you. So
Okay.
just pull back the camera and have more of you in the frame and have a bigger space for the whiteboard to show. Um, and I'm speaking in the context of like short content here. I'm not speaking about if you did like if you're doing like a case study and it's like a 10-minute long thing, or you're trying to show like a whole framework or whatever, just frame widescreen, get you in there, take as long as you need to write it out and just do it that way. But for short content, probably pull the camera out, have some more space. So it can be like more of your full body and space for the actual pieces on the whiteboard. The other aspect you can do is basically don't spend time drawing out what you want already. Pre-draw out probably the framework or the system, and maybe just fill in a couple things. So maybe you have the box and there's just like 4 lines where you're going to fill in like something there. That way you're not wasting time trying to talk and do this in a very short format. It's just like straight to the info. So you're like, here's how you can make better decision making. We're going to use my 2x2 matrix right here. Are you struggling with decision making as a C-suite executive? Or can help you break that in 60 seconds. If you're struggling with this, boom, try this. If you're, and you can use the whiteboard as a more past visual element you already have filled out versus trying to draw out the plus with little arrows to the circle. That's just going to add dead time to the video. And it's just going to make it's going to lower the comprehension. People are going to be like, I don't want to watch Mike write on a whiteboard. You know? Like they just want to see what the whiteboard is. And yeah, I mean, what you can even do is if you have something like a newsletter or whatever, where you're breaking down like these strategies for people, or you have a long form YouTube video. If you want to learn how to use this 2x2 framework in your own business, a full YouTube video breaking down this system and how you can apply it here, link in the description or link in the comments, or link in my bio. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel.
I have never done that. I've never said, hey, if you want to go deeper, go do this, or that my calls to action are weak in that context. And they don't lead to another part of the journey or another part of the experience. These conversion, you start to think about, or what I'm starting to think about, and I don't know if it's right. I haven't really kind of formulated how that journey comes together, but it's individual steps, like next logical step, next conversion, so that as people convert, they go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into the story, rather than like they've got to take the whole thing in a 90-second clip or a 3-minute clip, or my videos have gone now from about 7 minutes down to 5 and down to 3 in that kind of environment. I'd like to get to the point where they're 90 seconds. Today, the way that I do it is through a tool like Opus Clip and have an AI editor go through. And what was awesome about the feedback Tiger gave me when we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago is he said, I look at this and it's like, you just, didn't put any effort behind it. Just kind of let it go. And it was awesome feedback because I didn't put effort in. I just let the machine do it. And then was okay with just letting the machine go through and do it. But it was obvious that I just let the machine do it because of some of the artifacts that were still stuck in there, which was some of the color framing that if you looked at the full video, you'd see the whole thing. So that was awesome feedback. And I've started applying it. One of the other questions I've got is, how much is too much? How many topics are too many topics? How much content? How much is too much when you're coaching and guiding people to start working on their video journey? How much is too much?
One topic, one person, one problem.
Awesome.
So just who are you speaking to? Okay, you're only going to speak to that person. What problem did they have? You're only going to talk about that one problem. Here's the solution. Here's the only solution you can give. That's like the simplest way to approach it for short stuff. For longer stuff, you still want to keep that framework, but obviously you can get more in depth and granular with, for example, the problem or the solution. In the short video, maybe the problem is you can't get leads, right? So here's the solution. But maybe if you did like a longer form case study, you'd be able to break down like the 6 reasons why most people can't get leads, versus trying to just jump into a solution. And that's the difference between like problem aware and solution aware and all that different stuff, right? With the longer form video, you have more space to go through the different stages of awareness. Or as a short video, you kind of have to just pick one stage of awareness and just work with that. So it's like, let's go back to that example that we have. 3 reasons you're not closing deals from LinkedIn. Yeah. You're not going to spend the first half of the video explaining why not getting leads is harming your mental health and it's going to tank your business and all that and blah, 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 blah. And you don't need to drive the knife in that deep because you're just going to be wasting dead air. And people are going to be like, just tell me the freaking things I need to do. What are the 3 things? Keep the topic very focused. For example, for you, it's like 3 reasons, or here's how poor decision-making can rob your org of hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, or here's how poor decision-making can lead to higher churn within your company, or something like that. You can just basically break down, get straight to it very quickly. And everything you're going to be talking about is based on decision-making and churn, or it's based on the problems with lead generation or something along those lines. You don't want to go on a huge tangent.
This has been absolutely awesome, Tiger. Thank you for going really both hitting a lot of the surface type stuff that I think people get stuck with when it comes to starting video. At least I know I got stuck with when it came to starting video, and then going a bit deeper in some of the basic fundamental things that you can do in order to create videos that don't suck. Where can people find out more about what you're working on? Where would you like them to connect with you directly?
Go to my LinkedIn, Tiger Joseph. I'm the only Tiger Joseph on there, so pretty easy to find me. My company, videobuilders.io. Pretty simple name, yet again. You can find not all my work, but my B2B work at least on there. If you want to see all my work, you can just go to tigerjosephvideo.com. It's like my forever company I'm going to have with just all my stuff. I'm trying to post something every single day on LinkedIn. Going to spin up the newsletter again to go a bit more in depth in some of these topics. And yeah, we're just out here having a good time.
And go and follow Tiger on LinkedIn. Check out his video stuff. You'll see the quality, the care, the effort, the work, the professionalism that goes into the work that he does. I met Tiger in September. I've had a couple of different conversations with him. And afterward, as we went through and started looking at some video and now this podcast, once you start following Tiger, you will see this content. This content will come up and you'll start to notice the reasons why it is popping up in your feed. And it's one of those things where it's like, once you see it, you can't unsee it, and it's worth it. So make sure you get out there and follow Tiger. You'll learn something, and then you'll be able to think differently about something and do something. If you know of somebody who would find value in this conversation, in this podcast, please share it with them. Let Tiger and I know via LinkedIn. The shares help get the message out and help people get out of their own way when doing things like creating video content. Sales is a thinking process. Business is a thinking process. Life is a thinking process. How are you thinking different about your process?